All right, back again for another Roadie Storytime. And I actually literally just got done telling the story about the first time I ever got fired from a gig. We're currently live on Twitch filming again. Hello, Twitch chat. Hello to everybody on YouTube later. If you'd like to join when we do it live, you can go to twitch.tv/TankTheTech. Usually I wouldn't do two of these in a row, but after telling the story of the first time I got fired from a tour, some people were asking, have you ever quit in the middle of a tour? And I have once. So we figured, why not just tell this story right now? So where the last story took place in 2011, we're going to fast forward to around 2015. So about 10 years ago, winter time. And the thing about the winter in North America in the touring industry is that oftentimes there's not really a lot of work going on. And if you're in a place like Nashville, like I am, the only tours that are really going out around that time are like gospel and Christian tours because, you know, it's Christmas and got to capitalize on that. So I was looking for work in the winter of 2015. And a friend of mine had said, hey, I don't know if you'd be interested, but he's like, there is this like bigger gospel tour that's going out and doing like symphony orchestra halls and they need a stage manager. So I was like, yeah, okay, that could be kind of cool. You know, why not? I've stage managed other stuff before. So I emailed the person that was hiring for this tour. And before anybody asks, I'm not going to really name a lot of names on this one because I will probably talk shit throughout this. And while if the people that are involved ever see this, they'll know who I'm talking about. And I don't care. Like I would say it to them. I don't want to do these videos to just drag people. So we'll kind of keep this one a little, you know, but whatever. All you need to know, it's a gospel tour. So anyways, I sent an email to the hiring party for this tour and introduced myself. And they're like, hey, would you be available for an interview? And I was like, sure, that's kind of interesting. In-person interviews are not a normal, regular thing in the music industry. Like a lot of gigs I've gotten have just been like phone calls and quick conversations and been like, oh, are you available? Cool, let's go. So this person wanted to meet me at a coffee shop to do an interview. And I'll take that out or not, whatever. So I show up to this coffee shop and it's a girl and a guy conducting the interview, and they went over like my background and, you know, my touring experience. And they were like, yeah, you're like kind of like overqualified for this. And I was like, well, you know, there's not a lot of work going on right now. And yeah, I would prefer working. And they're like, and you have no problem doing like a gospel tour? And I was like, no, because I've done Christian tours before. And they're like, well, we do have some pretty strict rules because we are doing symphony orchestra halls and our crowd is kind of older and more conservative. You have to wear long sleeves, cover up your tattoos. And then they were like, oh, you have hand tattoos. Like, yeah, you have to figure out a way to cover up those too during showtime. And I'm just like, okay, I'll wear gloves, whatever. Fucking weird, but okay. Like I'm on stage, nobody's going to care. So we do this interview and they're like, I realized halfway through the interview that the people I was talking with were husband and wife. And they're actually younger than me. And the girl was the tour manager. And the guy, her husband, was the production manager / front of house engineer. And I'm not saying that husbands and wives can't work well together on tour, but there are issues that arise. And I'll get into one of those later. It wasn't issues with those two being together. It was just issues with them both being there and separating marriage from work. But anyways, we finished this interview and they're like, yeah, we'll give you a call when we make a decision. And they called me like the next day and they're like, yeah, we'd like to hire you for this tour. We want to get the whole crew together for like a thing at our house so everybody can meet and stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay. A couple days later, went over to their house, met the whole rest of the crew. And the whole rest of the crew was also other like professionals that were probably overqualified for a tour like this, but these people that were off. Like our lighting director was a dude that had worked for like Luke Bryan a bunch. The monitor engineer has worked for a lot of bands. Like everybody out there had a pretty good resume. So I get hired for the gig. We do a rehearsal at, where was the rehearsal? The rehearsal was at the Lifeway headquarters in Nashville. For anybody that doesn't know what Lifeway is, because I don't know if Lifeway exists in like Europe and there's a lot of Europeans that watch this. According to what it says here, it is a Christian media publishing and distribution division of the Southern Baptist Convention. I actually didn't know that. So they're basically a big church business provider and they sell books and media and they publish stuff. And they have a huge headquarters in Nashville and they have a theater in there. And that's where we did rehearsals. And it was really weird because like, I'm not a religious person, so it was just kind of interesting to me that it was at like a Christian book company's headquarters. But we do the rehearsal, everything's cool. The band themselves, it's interesting. It's a gospel group, And the two lead singers are husband and wife. And there was like 9 people in the band, like really talented musicians. We had everything from like a harp player to like fiddle and woodwinds and a bunch of stuff. So anyways, we do this rehearsal. We pack up the buses. It was multiple buses and trailers and stuff. And we start the tour. And the tour starts off okay. I'm used to tours where everybody has their world and like deals with everything separately and doesn't really tell other people what to do or worry about what anybody's doing. They just trust everybody to do their jobs. But as a stage manager, my job is to get the trailers unloaded, direct traffic while it's coming in, set up the risers, get everything placed on stage where everything should go. And then once we get to, rehearsal times and stuff, it's like managing the clock, making sure that we're not going into dark stages and getting fined with the unions and making sure everything's on time and stuff like that. And then at the end of the night, getting everything broken down, getting it back on the trailers and stuff like that. But time management was a big part of that. And I noticed very early on in the tour that the tour manager was very much trying to like micromanage my decisions on like everything. And it was kind of annoying. And I do believe I got to a point where I kind of just put my foot down and was like, hey, can you listen, I respect your position, but like, please let me try and do my job here. And we get through a few shows. Everything's fine. I mean, it's exactly how you'd expect a gospel tour to be. It was pretty boring. It wasn't like a Christian rock tour. Like the music was very gospel-y. The crowd's average age was like 80 years old, all like stereotypical like Southern church women and stuff like that. But I did notice that, after the shows, the band would like to have some cocktails and stuff like that, which is not weird. No judgment on that. Just because they're gospel or Christian doesn't mean they can't drink or whatever. But I just assumed that was a green light that anybody could. So on some of our tour dates, like they never stocked beer or alcohol on the bus, but like I'd bring like a 6-pack and have a beer at the end of the night. Well, apparently that was a problem because the tour manager came to me and said, this is a gospel tour. Like we don't drink out here. And I was like, the other buses are drinking. She's like, well, our bus doesn't. Like when we're out doing shows, like you can't drink. And I'm just like, okay. Like I never once got blasted or got drunk on this tour or anything. And as we've talked about before, I'm like sober now and I know how I was in the past, but on this tour specifically, like there was no point that I was drunk ever. But that kind of became a thing at one point. And anyways, long story short, we kept doing some more shows. We probably did like 6 or 7 shows at this point. And I started noticing that the production manager, the tour manager's husband, would start getting involved when she and I were having discussions. And this is where I'm talking like they couldn't separate being married and working together. Cause like I got into an argument one time with the tour manager. And then like 2 minutes later, the production manager's like, yo, you got a problem with my wife? It's like, no, I have a problem with your tour manager right now. That is your tour manager, not your wife. So relax. We had a lot of issues like that where it like started getting like personal and stuff, but going to the point where everything kind of ended, we had, this was only weekend touring. So during the week we were at home and we were leaving Nashville one night and our next show was in Toronto. So that's a drive, like on the bus. That's a long drive. So for this drive, we had to leave at like, 3 p.m. And I was like, well, I'm going to get a 6-pack of beer. Like, I don't care. We're not working. She told me I can't drink while we're on tour working, but we have a long drive and I'm going to watch some movies and just have a couple beers. So that's what I did. Again, never got messed up. I think I had like 4 out of the 6 of the beers on the drive up. No situations, no nothing. At the show the next day was when it really started getting like really weird. Like everything I did, the tour manager was questioning me. Scheduling, how I was loading stuff in with the stagehands, stuff like that. I'm just like, what is going on? And I found out that day too. I didn't know this at the time. One of the other crew guys told me, they're like, oh, it's probably the babysitter mentality in her. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, did you not know? They're like, this is her first tour managing these guys. She was their babysitter last year. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, they couldn't find a tour manager for this tour. So they hired her and she was like their nanny or their babysitter for their kids like all last year. And I was like, what? It's coming to find out this tour manager has never actually really toured before. Like, yeah, big career move. And it's like, I will fully admit there was a part of my brain that like kind of lost all respect for her at that point anyways, because of the way that she was already talking to me. I was like, and the ego part of my brain when I was, 10 years ago when I was younger was like, I've toured more than this person. I know more than them. So there's a little bit of that ego going on if I'm being honest, but I respect the position. She is the tour manager. I am not. I'm the stage manager. But in that sense, I needed her to respect my position as the stage manager, not question every little thing I was doing. So we do sound check at Toronto at the Symphony Hall there. Beautiful building. And it's about 4:45 in the afternoon. And for anybody that doesn't know, a lot of buildings and venues that have union stagehands have dark stage times. What that means is that from a certain point in time, at this show, is 5 to 6 p.m., is called a dark stage, where the union takes a break and nobody is allowed to work on stage. Sound checks have to be over. Nobody can do anything. If you do, your production will get fined from the building and or the union. So at 4:45, I walk on stage and I tell the lead singers of the group, hey, we got about 10 minutes. And then I want to get everybody off stage because we're going to run into a dark hour for the union. And they were like, oh, cool, no problem. Like, whatever. Well, I guess the tour manager had been in the office and the audio was feeding into the office from the hall. And she heard over the mic that I told them that. She comes out to the stage and she goes, why are you telling them they have to be done? And I was like, well, because there's a dark stage for the union. And if we go into that hour, we'll get fined. She goes, this is our tour. They can't tell us what to do. This is our show. This is our tour. And if we want to sound check longer, we're going to sound check longer. And I'm like, that is not the way this works. I'm like, yeah, they can sound check longer if they want, but they're going to get fined and we're going to have to pay money. She goes, no, that's ridiculous. And the singer for the band kind of hears us arguing and comes over to the side of the stage and goes, what's the problem? And I was like, the problem is that if we go 1 second past 5 o'clock for this sound check, you guys will be fined thousands of dollars because it is a union break. It's union rules. And he literally turned around and looked at the band and goes, everybody off stage. And this was like 4:50 at this point. He goes, let's just get off stage now and make sure we got no problems. And so everybody gets off stage. She's obviously very mad at me at this point for kind of undermining what she wanted to do, even though I was 100% making the right call in that situation. And I was just kind of pissed at this point. And like, I started talking to some of the other crew guys and was like, dude, I don't know if I can handle this anymore, man. And they were all like, we get it. Like, we understand. And coincidentally, I get a phone call during this dark stage hour from my old production manager from Pat Benatar. And he's like, hey man, how's it going? And I said, it sucks. I'm out on this tour. And I told him what's going on. And he goes, I am production managing a country artist right now. And we need a tech. Like, do you want to come out with us? And the artist he was working for was Frankie Ballard. And I was like, damn, dude, let me think about this and call you back. As I'm thinking about this, I get another phone call from a person. It was the production manager for Dustin Lynch. Saying that they needed a guitar tech. And I was like, well, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I've never really been a guitar tech before. He goes, yeah, but you've been a bass tech. And you know bass, it's the same thing with 2 extra strings. Like, you'll figure it out. Like, we really need somebody out here. And I'm just like, all right, well, I got another offer. Let me think about it. Tommy just said these were signs from God. Funny considering what kind of tour I was on. So within an hour, I got 2 offers to go do other gigs in the middle of this one. And I'm just like, wow. So I start looking up. I was not familiar with either artist at the time. I start looking up Dustin and Frankie. And at the time, Dustin's career was quite new. And Frankie had more plays on Spotify and was playing bigger shows. So I call back the production manager for Frankie, who I know and I trust. I love this guy. And I was like, dude, I'm not going to lie to you. I just got another offer and I would love your personal opinion. Which gig do you think I should take? And he's like, man, I would love to have you out here. But he goes, long term, I think Dustin's career trajectory is probably going to be bigger than Frankie's. He goes, I would take that Dustin gig if I were you. So I was like, okay, I appreciate the advice. Like, those are the kind of people I love in this industry that will shoot it to you straight and look after you, even if it doesn't, like, you know, suit their interests. So I called the production manager for Dustin Lynch back and I was like, yeah, like, I think I'm into this. Let's do this. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, you know, here's the details, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, there's one problem. I'm on a tour right now and you guys need me to start in like, it was like 5 days. I'm going to have to quit this gig. And he's like, do you care about quitting this gig? And I was like, no. And somewhere during this conversation, this is where this is all coming full circle too. Somewhere during this conversation, I asked how he got my contact information, and he told me who it was from. It was the guy that replaced me when I got fired from Red. Like, so the dude that replaced me on one gig a few years later recommends me to a friend for another gig. That's how this industry works, dude. It's like, personal stuff aside, it's like if you know somebody that's like, you know, can do a good job on something, like you kind of just throw their name out there, and that's what happened. So I told this PM, I was like, listen, after talking to you and figuring all this out, like I will absolutely quit this gig after tonight. Like I will, I don't care. Like, it's not going to burn any bridges. It will also not put them in a bad spot, because after the show in Toronto, they had 2 weeks off, like a mid-tour break. So I'm like, that'll give them 2 weeks to find a stage manager. And they're in Nashville. They'll find somebody in a day. So I don't feel bad about it. So I called Claire, my wife, and told her about what was going on. Was like, this is what I'm going to do. And she's like, okay, I support it. Like, I'm like, yeah, so when you come to bus call tomorrow, just make sure you pull up and I'm going to get all my stuff off the bus. Ronan just said, could there be any legal repercussions for walking out of a job from one day to the next? In this situation, no. Because I didn't sign a contract or anything. I didn't sign an employment contract or a work contract with this band. Now, there might be some other situations where roadies have signed contracts where they can't. In this situation, there was none. So we finished the show in Toronto. I get on the bus. I finish my last couple beers that I had left. And when we get to Nashville, we get to where we were having bus call. And Claire pulled up to the bus. I had told all of the other crew guys, because I like them, like, hey, when we get back, like I'm out. Like, I'm not doing the rest of this tour. And I told them I got a new gig, and they were like, totally understandable, like whatever. And the funny thing is, the lighting director on that tour, who also worked for Luke Bryan, was like, oh, well, our big headlining tour next year, Dustin Lynch's support. So we'll see you next year. So I ended up getting to tour that guy again too. But, so we get to Nashville, I'm getting all my stuff off the bus, and the tour manager and her husband come up to me and they're like, oh, you can leave your stuff on the bus. And I was like, no, I was going to come talk to you after I got it off. I'm done. And they're like, what? I was like, I'm done. You need to find a new stage manager. You got 2 weeks to find a stage manager for the rest of your tour. You've only got like 6 shows left anyways. Like, I can't work with you guys. Like, I appreciate the opportunity, but I can't work with you guys. And I got a new gig and I'm out. And they were kind of baffled. Like, there was a mix of like, you can't believe you're quitting this gig, and also like, what are we gonna do? Like, why? Like, no, like, do you need to get paid more? I was like, no, it's literally working with you guys. I can't work with you guys. So I eventually was just like, you can't. They're like, well, just think about it for a night and then call us. And I was like, I will tell you right now, there is gonna be no talk. There's gonna be no thinking about this when I get home. I've already accepted another gig. I'm not working with you guys anymore. You have 2 weeks to find a new stage manager. And I got in my car and I left. I thought that would be kind of the end of it. I saw somebody in chat earlier said, did they pay you at all? Yeah, they paid me in full. Like, I'm not gonna, no, they didn't withhold my pay. So the funniest part of this whole story hasn't even happened yet. I'll get into that right now. So I get home and I start prepping for my new gig with, you know, Dustin, and like reading into some stuff. Cause at that time, keep in mind, like I really didn't know anything about guitar teching. So I, you know, did some studies on my own before that tour started. And I get a phone call that night from a number that I didn't have saved in my phone, which I normally never answer, but for some reason I did. And it was the husband, a singer of this gospel group. And he's just like, hey man, I just wanted to call and talk to you personally, because like we really enjoyed having you on tour, and I just heard what happened, and I just wanted to call and talk to you and apologize. And I was like, yeah, no worries, man. And I started letting him talk, and he's like, I can't remember how he led into it, but at one point I started thinking like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Because he was making it sound like I had gotten fired. He goes, yeah, our tour manager let me know what happened, and she said that unfortunately we had to let you go. And I was like, dude, she did not let me go. I quit. I was like, I literally got my stuff off the bus and I quit. And he goes, well, that's not what she told me. I was like, well, I'm telling you that's what happened. He goes, no, she told me that you had a boozing issue and couldn't handle not drinking on tour, so that we had to let you go. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, dude, she talked to me about having beer on tour. And I was like, no, there was no issue. I was like, you were on our bus last night drinking whiskey in front of us, in front of her, and everything. He's like, yeah, but like we just have cocktails and we don't get drunk. And I was like, I never got drunk on this tour. I had a couple beers on our drive from Nashville to Toronto. That was it. And he's like, well, you know, she told me that like you brought an entire 6-pack. And I was like, I did. And I had 4 of them. I was like, do you think I'm going to get blasted off of 4 beers or an entire 6-pack? And he's like, well, I'm not here to talk about our alcohol tolerances, how manly we are and can handle our liquor. He's like, I'm just saying, like, you know, if you're on a tour. And then he starts talking to me like I was in the wrong. He was like, if you're on a tour where they tell you can't drink, like you shouldn't be drinking. And I'm just like, what is happening right now? Okay, yeah, sure. Maybe I could have taken that a little more seriously and absolutely not drank a drop of alcohol on tour. But I had 4 beers on a day-long bus ride while you guys are slamming bottle of like Bushmills whiskey every night. Like, this is the most hypocritical bullshit I've ever heard. Yeah, the conversation did not go good. It was just like, he's like, I'm just going off what our tour manager and our production manager told me. So like, you know, best of luck to you in the future and, you know, whatever. So yeah, I look at my wife after I got off the phone and I was just like, that was the most weird phone call. Like, he literally talked to me like they shit canned me off that gig instead of me leaving. But it was funny because like a few days later, I started my new gig with Dustin. And, you know, later in 2016, we did that Luke Bryan tour and I saw that lighting director from that tour and he's just like, oh yeah, we missed you out there. Like they got somebody else and the rest of the tour, you know, it went fine and whatever. And he's like, yeah, but they were asking about you by the end of the tour. And I was like, who? And he's like, it was the lead singers were like, yeah, we kind of miss having that guy around. Like, does anybody talk to him? How's he doing? And then like, even like a year later after this happened, they invited me to their Christmas party at their house randomly. I hadn't talked to the singers of this band since leaving the tour, and they invited me to their Christmas party. I don't know if they were being serious or if they were just like doing it to be nice or whatever, but yeah, I never talked to him again after that day. But yeah, that was the first and only time I ever quit a gig like in the middle of a tour. Yeah, you know, I don't regret it obviously because landing that gig with Dustin pretty much solidified my guitar tech career and led to other gigs and other connections, and I experienced a lot of cool things. So it's always interesting looking back at moments in your career in the music industry. I always get people asking me if I regret anything, and I really don't, because everything I've ever done has led me to like literally sitting here and talking to you guys right now. I'm currently having not even one of, but my favorite gig I've ever had in my life. So like everything on tour is a learning experience. And, you know, as long as you're using experience or opportunities to step up your career, yeah, it is what it is. So, but that's going to wrap it up for this little story time. Thank you guys for being here live on Twitch while we were doing this. If you're watching on YouTube later, you can go to twitch.tv/TankTheTech. We tell stories, we do reactions, all that stuff. But yeah, I'm also on a ton of different social media. @TankTheTech is my handle on just about everything. So if you want to follow along there, you can. But until next time, this was another edition of Roadie Storytime. And wherever you are in the world, be safe, be kind to each other. I love you all, and I will see you very soon.